In today's video, we have the latest NHL trade talk around the Montreal Canadiens, Vancouver Canucks, and more on the Philadelphia Flyers. Plus, we have more news from the NHL waiver wire and several injury updates as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about today. Let's start with the NHL waiver wire news. The Edmonton Oilers today placed forward Colton Sceviour on waivers. So we will find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if he's cleared or if he's claimed by another NHL team. Obviously, that was spawned by the Evander Kane signing that we had yesterday. From the Oilers, clearing a roster spot to get him into the roster. It's believed he's going to play this weekend for Edmonton, so be curious to see how they put together their lineup. Obviously, it adds another solid scoring winger. Hopefully, like I said before, his his off-ice antics are behind him, and hopefully he doesn't cause major disruptions. This is either going to be a real positive for the Oilers, and they'll get the extra scoring touch they need to kind of stay on track and head for the playoffs, or if it turns out to be a disaster off the ice in the dressing room and all those other issues that have daunted him as most of his career, then it could totally implode the team. So we'll see which way it goes. I hope for the Oilers' sake it works out for the best. Now, some injury updates here. Of course, we saw the big hit on Nathan MacKinnon the other night against the Boston Bruins at Taylor Hall. Was a clean hit. There really was more of a freak accident than anything else. McKinnon's stick obviously came back right into his face. He did require facial surgery. I'm not sure exactly. It looked like it could have been his nose. Hard to say, but he did require surgery to correct the issue in that regard. And he is also has a concussion. So another guy out injured and is going to miss the All-Star game. Just like Drake Batherson, we saw him just go down a couple days ago as well. So MacKinnon will be out. Not sure exactly how long. They said he likely is going to miss at least 3 games, but concussions can be difficult to kind of predict. But if the concussion recovery goes well and he gets over that, in a reasonable amount of time, the facial stuff probably won't last too long because he can wear a shield or a temporary, different kind of facial guard there and get back into action. Now, Adam Fox is also going to be out for a little while for the Rangers. Not quite clear if he'll miss the All-Star game or what status he's at, but certainly another top NHL player goes down with an injury. The Rangers have indicated that he is likely going to miss about 3 games or so as well. Pretty much the same as MacKinnon. And Blackhawks captain Jonathan Toews is also going to be out of action for a little while. He's in concussion protocol, so that's obviously not easy to determine exactly just how long he is going to be out. Now, another kind of complicated situation is with the Buffalo Sabres. They technically don't have a goalie that's active and able to play. Now, they do have Craig Anderson and Dustin Tokarski on the trip because they are heading on the road, but they obviously have Aaron Dell, who's suspended for that play against Drake Batherson. They get Auger, who was done okay for them actually, but he's now in COVID protocol. And then of course Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen, Dustin Tokarski, and Craig Anderson have all been out injured for some time. It's not quite clear if either Anderson or Tokarski will be able to play this weekend, but it could create a scenario where they're kind of in a real tough spot there. So technically, as of today, as of right now, they don't. But I did see reports from like Lance Lasowski saying that those guys are on the trip and they're hoping they'll be able to play. But that does kind of leave things kind of close to the wire here. So we'll be interested to see how that turns out. I'm not sure really what they would do in that regard if they do not have any kind of active, healthy goaltender to put between the pipes. Now, before we go further into today's video, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Name a better duo than McDavid and Draisaitl this season. I've got one. Manscaped in grooming. That's right, our sponsors at Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, have all the best tools to clean up your whole act when it comes to your hygiene for men. It's time to skate on the first line with the global leaders here in men's hygiene and join the movement at Manscaped, where you can get the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0, as well as some fantastic new products just recently launched, including the brand new 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. This is a terrific product. Allows you to wash your hair in one fell swoop, leaves you smelling great. It has the refined cologne quality fragrance attached absolutely phenomenal. And of course, the other new product most recently launched is the premium body wash to kind of complete the set. But that's not all. Manscaped has new products coming out here yet again in January, so you want to stay tuned. The body wash gives you deep hydration, keeps you smelling great, and not only smelling great, but feeling moisturized as well. Join the movement at manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. That's promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Now moving on to today's NHL trade rumors. I want to take a look at the Montreal Canadiens first up here and some information from Dave Pagnotta of the fourthperiod.com. Of course, the Habs are a team we've discussed at great length here recently, given the fact that they're near the bottom of the standings. We know it's a given at this point that they will be sellers heading to the deadline. It's just really a matter of who all goes and who stays and what further changes they decide to make in the offseason. And we know some of their pending UFAs, like a Ben Chiarot, for example, would be a prime candidate to be moved. We've heard Artturi Lehkonen has gotten a ton of attention as well, pending RFA. So there's a pretty decent chance he could be traded by the sounds of things. We've heard lots of other interest in a variety of other players on Kulak, another one that comes up a lot, as well as a depth piece for different teams. But another name that has drawn some interest, but haven't really saw a lot of reports linking him to any specific teams, though, is Jonathan Drouin. Now, we know Drouin has certainly had his fair share of battles during his time in Montreal. Hasn't really gone the way that they envisioned it when they acquired him after giving up young top defenseman Mikhail Sergachev and with the Tampa Bay Lightning for that trade, which was a one-for-one deal back under the Marc Bergevin era. Of course, at the time, it was kind of debatable, right? But Sergachev has kind of developed as many suspected he would into a real solid defenseman for the Lightning, and Drouin has had his moments where he's played really well, but he certainly has had his fair share of struggles. We've learned a lot about the off-ice issues of Jonathan Drouin, battling a lot of different mental health stuff this year, and now he's actually battling a physical ailment as well, where he is going to be out for a while with a wrist injury. We don't have exact time frames on that, and that very well could have an impact on this trade rumor or whether or not he's moved at all. And of course, Drouin comes with a little bit more term, though, on his contract at over $5 million, so it's not the most complicated and easy deal to get done here. But Drouin apparently is drawing interest from a team like the Nashville Predators. The Predators are a team that's certainly surprised many this year. They've had real solid bounce-back seasons from guys like Johansson and Duchesne, and the team has done a lot better than many expected. I know I would certainly throw myself into that category. I didn't see bounce-backs for them being so substantial that they would be, in a top 3 spot in the Central, and look like a real force heading to the playoffs. So they're likely, instead of being a team that sells at the deadline, they're likely going to be a team that adds. I mean, you have to wonder what that also means for the future of Philip Forsberg as well, who's a pending UFA. And I know going into the year, a lot of people, myself included, thought he might be one of the big names to watch at the deadline, given the fact that they, I suspected they probably wouldn't be in the playoff picture, but things have certainly worked out quite different and have changed. So now we're in a completely different scenario. And of course, the Preds do have some cap space to work with. And Drouin is a player of interest. It's believed that David Poile wants to bring in some extra reinforcements and some extra helps for those guys that have worked hard to get the team where they are right now. And Drouin is a guy that they have their eye on. So we'll see where this goes. We know Poile is a guy who's not afraid to make big moves. We know he's not afraid to take on players with term. And quite often that's the preferred strategy when it's come to the Nashville GM's approach in the past. So this would not be a complete shocker. It's really hard to say what the return package would be on Drouin going to the Montreal Canadiens. I'm sure they would probably have a variety of players there that they would certainly have interest in. They'd probably be more interested in a lot of the younger talent, whether it's Fabro or Tomasino. I'm not sure that they'd be willing to give either of those players up. Or maybe it's a combination of draft picks or something like that. But we'll see where it goes. Obviously, the injuries and keep him out for a while. And will likely taper the noise around his name for some time. But he should hopefully be back closer to the trade deadline. And we'll see if those interests resume. And if he ends up a player to watch, you're getting, maybe in Nashville's radar. Now, on to the Philadelphia Flyers, a team that we fully suspect will make a lot of changes between the deadline and the offseason. offseason. Of course, we had the press conference the other day from Chuck Fletcher and Dave Scott from the ownership level talking about basically what their plans are. They don't see themselves going through like a 3-year rebuild. They basically are going to go through what they called an aggressive retool. They laid out their plans for who they felt was a part of the core, and there was a lot of surprising names that were not included in that. And one of those names that's drawing a lot of attention is Travis Konecny. Now, Konechny's still a fairly young scoring winger, would be a tremendous help to a lot of teams, and he apparently was being close to being traded this past offseason. I know when they made some other trades, like when they traded Voracek for Atkinson, Konechny's name was in the mix quite a bit as well, and apparently was also, obviously didn't happen, but was close, and a lot of conversations around him were had. So you throw Travis Konechny out there, there is a lot of teams I think that will line up for interest. And the other names that we talked about a little bit before as well that were also not mentioned were like Provorov and Hart, who I think are less likely to get traded. I think the Flyers are still concerned on Provorov. I wouldn't think that it's impossible that they trade either of them, but it's going to take a bigger, of course, return package to really interest them and pique them to make them want to do that. And of course, Claude Giroux is another example here where at the deadline he's going to be able to call his own shot, where he has the no move clause, but many feel he will likely get dealt as well. But there's going to be a lot of turnover and obviously a lot of aggressiveness to kind of retool quickly here. Many suspect if he makes it to free agency that the Flyers will indeed be all over bringing down Johnny Gaudreau. Of course, would be a homecoming for him from that area of the United States, playing in Calgary, having another solid season, certainly thriving under head coach Daryl Sutter, playing well with his line mates like Lindholm and Tkachuk. There's a lot of good reasons for him to stay. He said a lot of the right things in the media about wanting to stay in the past, but negotiations on contracts have been pretty mum this year. They made a point to not talk to the media about it at all. So we really don't know where things stand. But if he hits the open market, the Flyers are going to have to open their wallets big time. But of course, with the comments from Dave Scott saying he's given Chuck Fletcher a blank check and that all the turnover and the way they were talking, it led many people to think that they fully intend on making a big swing in free agency. And if he makes it there, you know that would likely be one of their top targets, if not the top target. So we'll see. I know Elliot Friedman also kind of speculated their interest in Nazem Kadri if he makes it to free agency as well. Obviously, he's another player that can kind of play their style of game and would probably fit well in that lineup. But again, we'll see. But Konechny is getting a lot of interest and would be one of those names that we never really talked about in the other video. But certainly, like I said, a good, solid, young scoring winger about that kind of trade for sure. Now, of course, I want to further discuss the Vancouver Canucks scenario as well. Of course, Jim Rutherford, when they were announcing the new GM, Patrick Allvin, made mention that they certainly want to find ways before the deadline to create some much-needed salary cap flexibility. I've seen some NHL insiders and reporters like Pierre LeBrun really make note of the fact that he feels the Canucks need to restock their prospect pool a bit as well, because clearly they have a lot of solid young talent, but a lot of the team's top prospects from the past few years are solid members of their roster now. They graduated to being full-time NHL players over the last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They have a lot of good young talent. They've got Pettersson, Boeser, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko. They're all there now. Podkolzin's in the mix now. You got Höglander in the mix. Formerly listed as top prospects that are now everyday players. So certainly it would not hurt. But how are they going to get that flexibility? Well, the only way would be to move a player with term and money. And we talked about the high interest in JT Miller. He's obviously playing like a madman recently, got a hat trick last night. Certainly, he's a guy that's easily motivated and fueled by that kind of stuff. So, he was asked post-game about the noise around his name and the rumors and if that kind of fueled his fire a little extra, and he certainly didn't say no. So it makes you think that he's out to prove people that, he's certainly worth every penny he gets, which is certainly not why the Canucks would want to trade him. They're just getting a heavy interest from teams because he is so good, and it seems to be getting better with age, which is not a common thing that you see in the NHL. But we talked about the possibility as well about Tyler Myers in the other video, maybe being a target that they move as well. But we can't really not talk about Brock Boeser. Brock Boeser is another way that they could really create a much-needed flexibility here, because he is due a $7.5 million qualifying offer as a pending restricted free agent. Now, could they extend him into a contract that they find more favorable? It's possible, but it's probably unlikely that he would agree to that right now. He's likely going to let the season finish out and kind of take its course here. Clearly, Boeser's not all that far away from being the unrestricted free agent years. He still has a little bit of RFA time left. But the fact that he's due this $7.5 million qualifying offer, with the stats he's putting up, it's debatable if they're going to feel like it's really worth it. I mean, he hasn't been a bad player for them, but it's debatable if they really, I don't know if he's lived up to being a $7-8 million player over the last couple of years, been, somewhat inconsistent. The numbers just aren't quite where they need to be. So, at one point he was certainly trending in that direction. You have to wonder how they really feel about it, as much as they probably don't really want to move him. The fact that contract is coming due, and obviously if they don't want to give him that, they don't qualify him, he becomes a UFA, he can walk. So you don't want to do that either. So it is possible that we could possibly end up seeing a Brock Boeser deal, especially if they could trade him for a player with term that's kind of fits their model a little bit better. Maybe it's something that we actually see. I'm not suggesting that they're out there actively shopping him, but we know that Rutherford and Allred have some tough decisions to make, and made it very clear that creating some cap space is very important to them by the deadline. So you have to think, well, they're not a top team in the Western Conference, but certainly, continuing to work towards being in the playoff picture, that regardless of how that goes, that moving on a player with term is a real possibility. And I don't think it's unreasonable to think that Boeser just might be that guy, but time will tell. We have time to see where things go, and we'll go from there. But let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down below in the comment section. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.